order twice. Hibachi, got the gravy on the rice. Rolling in Mexico.
Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome back to another episode of the Steelers Q&A here on Sunday night. This is the last time this show will be on a Sunday night for the foreseeable future, as we have Pittsburgh Steelers games happening starting a week from today in New York. To help me talk about that tonight, to answer your questions, and to talk some under-the-radar Steelers that are not getting talked about enough, it's Archie Wilson. Archie, how you doing tonight?
Good, it's good to be back on to talk some Steelers ball with you. And yeah, as you said, this time next week we'll know if the Steelers are 1-0 after their game with the Jets. So very much looking forward to it.
Absolutely. I get to this point every year, and I try to rank my favorite days of the NFL calendar. And I think wildcard weekend and divisional round weekend are probably the top two, in my opinion, just because of how much they mean, right? As far as every team giving their all. Anything can happen. Any given Sunday, that's the best day of the year for any given Sunday. And then right after that, it has to be week one, because it is just the anticipation, the blood, sweat, and tears that have been poured in all offseason for those of us who cover the team, obviously, but most importantly for the guys who are out there on the field, who have been ramping up for a long time now and are ready to play games. So when we're talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers specifically here, week one is just another level of excitement, edge of your seat football from the first snap. I don't care how ugly it is. I don't care, what the offense looks like necessarily. I just want to see some Steelers football, and I do care about that. But in the end, I just want to see some football in some black and gold jerseys running around on a field again.
Yeah, no, exactly that. I mean, it's been 7 or 8 months for majority of football fans just to see their team out on the field. So the anticipation, every team's 0-0, got a chance. Obviously, some more than others, but everyone's got hope at this time of year. So every game means a little bit extra. And yeah, as you said, I think just we've gone through an off season once again and just reading basically training camp reports, what the beat reporters have to say for us about what the team looks like, and then a very limited amount of preseason sample size. So it's just going to be so exciting to see all the fresh faces that the Steelers have brought in. It's kind of been an unprecedented off season for the team. So yeah, it's definitely a week one that you almost look forward to more than others just because of that as well.
Yeah, it is. So much turnover, so many big names on Pittsburgh's defense and offense when you talk about Jalen Ramsey and obviously Aaron Rodgers. And we haven't even seen Rodgers play a game yet because he didn't play in the preseason. It's going to be a lot of fun. So buckle up, Steeler Nation. Let's get into it, man. I think that, you start on Thursday night this week with the defending Super Bowl champions, and you've got football on Thursday. You've got football on Friday again this week. I think it's Chiefs and Chargers, right, on Friday from Sao Paulo, Brazil. And then Sunday it hits hard with all of the regular scheduled games. You got big one on Sunday Night Football. You got a big one on Monday Night Football. It's just they get you ramped up so well for week one. And I'm totally pumped for that. But when you're talking about the Steelers, though, and where they sit in the AFC and all the different things that have to go your way in an NFL season to get where you want to go, we don't talk about certain players enough. We talk about TJ Watt, and we talk about Alex Highsmith. We talk about Aaron Rodgers and DK Metcalf. We talk about the offensive line, and we get to so focused in on these guys that are like the headliners and the all-pro potential guys, the Cam Haywards and before Minka Fitzpatrick, but now Jalen Ramsey. So what we wanted to do in this show, and if you are in the chat listening and you want to comment in your pick to talk about here for role players or like under the radar X factor guys on the roster, and I think that those guys are what help you win in the margins. And if you can win in the margins, then you're going to be a better team and you're going to see yourself dancing at the end of the year in the playoffs. So let's start with you, Archie. Who's your first guy while we wait for some people in the chat to get their picks in here? Who's your first guy that you want to talk about as kind of like a role player or an X factor that we're not talking about enough, that's going to make a lot of impact on the Steelers' win and loss record?
Yeah, so I think a lot of this offseason has kind of been talking about Roman Wilson. And I think the one name, due to the wide receiver saga that's gone on with the Steelers for the past 24 months or so, that's gone under the radar, partly due to injury, and then just because of the anticipation of what Roman Wilson could be as that former third-round pick, has been Calvin Austin again this year. Last year, he took strides to becoming a number 2, number 3 type wide receiver in the NFL. And I think the strides he took to being not just a slot weapon, like him being able to work on the outside a bit, and he was very obviously the second best or the best wide receiver on the field when George Pickens was injured for those 3 or 4 games down the stretch. So for me, I think Calvin Austin, even though he's had that injury, I think he should be potentially back week 1 or maybe just week 2, and he's one name that I think could kind of affect how well the Steelers can go this year on offense if they don't bring in another name to that wide receiver core, because he is that clear-cut wide receiver 2 in my mind. But a lot of fans have been talking about Roman Wilson just because what he's done in the preseason and all the hype kind of surrounding him coming in after we didn't see him last year.
Yeah, he's one of the big names in that category because the Steelers haven't made a move there yet as we're recording this, and it is DK Metcalf and a bunch of guys, right? And how do we get from DK Metcalf is this one-on-one matchup nightmare, can take over games because you just can't cover him because he's so big and so dynamic in the specific plays that you would ask him to do, and the route combinations that he would do. But he's the only top tier receiver, top flight receiver on the roster, and so he's going to get all the attention. Where do you draw that line? I think for Pittsburgh, so far it's been, well, we don't necessarily prioritize enough to make the necessary move without waiting for it to come to us, I guess, is kind of my point on it. But they get to this point and they're like, well, if nobody's going to fall in our lap, then we're just going to ride with this set of underrated role players here maybe. And if Roman Wilson can jump from that type of player, like a fringe wide receiver 3, a wide receiver 4, to an actual wide receiver 2, because I think we know Calvin Austin isn't going to do that. I just don't think he has the repertoire as a receiver due to his size constraints and the type of player that he is. I don't know if he can line up outside for you in the Z. I don't know if he can be multiple and do different things. So you need a Roman Wilson to step up. And I think that he's a fantastic name to mention here. I'm sure we would get a lot of those in the comments if you hadn't mentioned it so far. I'm going to go ahead and do one that was kind of mentioned here in the chat by Deadhead92. Let's see if it comes up a different name. Nope, Deadhead92. Mount Washington, big year if they move him around and let him free, especially in the red zone. This is my guy. I mean, I've talked about him since that draft class. Like I watched Georgia a lot. I've got a lot of family that are Georgia Bulldog fans. And when I watched that team, he just stood out to me. And I was like, this is the guy that could unlock the Matt Canada offense, and nothing could do that, it turns out. So we had to move on. But Arthur Smith now, I'm saying the same thing. This guy could unlock this offense if he's utilized correctly. And I don't think the Steelers have been willing so far to utilize him in the passing game to a degree that I think he could be used. And so if that happens this year, I think that he could be an absolute like megaton nuke dropped on defenses, especially in the red zone, just like Deadhead 92 was saying. So I am excited for it. I think that he was utilized more this preseason in an effort to see what he can do. I think Aaron Rodgers loves him, and I think that he's going to be on the field a lot because the other two guys are basically pass catcher onlys, right? And he's the one who comes in as the 6th offensive lineman and blocks. So he's going to be on the field a lot, and if they will just get out of their own way and utilize him in the passing game, I think that he will be a huge piece of winning in the margins in red zone, third down, all those key downs that Mike Tomlin always talks about, the money downs. Get him out there and let him play.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think he's been severely underutilized in his first 2 years in the NFL for Washington. He's obviously got that blocking repertoire that we know. He can stand up defensive ends. He's a huge extension of the offensive line in the run game. But seeing him running down the seams this preseason, it shows
Mhm.
the kind of talent that he can be. And we know Rodgers loves to hit the seams, especially against the modern day, the man coverage, the cover threes, and all that. So
Yep.
I think in terms of what we could see from Darnell, he's going to be an unbelievable red zone threat that we saw glimpses of last year, only very sparingly. I believe he got maybe one touchdown on a back shoulder fade kind of play. And he didn't get
Mhm.
a whole lot of other opportunities. So that was one of the things that was really baffling to me, quite honestly, last year. So seeing him in the high and low red zone, I think he's going to be a massive part of the passing game there. And I do just want to see them get him in a bit of space. We saw it last year where they got those quick kind of dump offs to him in the flat, and then he rumbled for 8 to 10 to 15 yards, and just letting him use his athleticism. Because yes, he might not be super fast over the first 5 meters or so, but if he gets 5 meters to 10 meters to speed up, he's almost impossible to tackle. So I think he's a great shout for one of the key role players this year for the Steelers. Even if you look at the depth charts on ESPN, and he looks like the third tight
Yeah.
end on that.
Right, right. He's going to be more impactful than that, I believe. So we just need to see it. We need to see it in actual game time situations. Daniel Red, I have to bring him up here. He's a regular listener, regular follower. Says the Steelers are going to be fine. How's your remodeling coming along? Let me tell you, it is slow. It is just slow going over here in the remodel. Still recording from my daughter's room or the kitchen if I can't get in here, or the living room sometimes. But eventually, I'll have a space to be able to do that. But it's going along well. We should be getting some trades done this week, and hopefully get some inspections and maybe get insulated and drywall up here soon. So just a life update there. You guys didn't need to know that, but Daniel Red asked. Appreciate it, Daniel. Let's go back and talk about some other players here. I wanted to talk about Juan Thornhill on this, and Kenneth McNair brings him up. So this is great. He's coming in to fill big shoes as far as the player goes, right? But the role hasn't necessarily been big shoes to fill because Minka was playing like a takeaway, um, or like a not a takeaway machine, but I guess like a deterrence in the middle of the field is what I'm trying to say. Taking away the middle of the field, not taking the ball away. He wasn't taking the ball away. That is not what was happening. So can Juan Thornhill come in and be kind of like 90% of what Minka was doing as far as taking one part of the field away, kind of being the fielder for this team? If he can, then that frees up the Steelers at corner, where they now have more talent to play a little bit more press man coverage and to stun receivers at the line of scrimmage, to hang with some of these big time passing attacks in the AFC and allow their ferocious front seven to get home a little bit more often. So he's going to be a huge piece in that role. And then the other player that got brought up here that I wanted to pop in by Michael Hyrack. Joey Porter Jr. is another guy in the secondary that doesn't get talked about anymore after the new additions at corner. And both of these guys, Juan Thornhill and Joey Porter Jr., are going to be huge pieces for the Steelers defense. If they want to win in the margins, those guys have to be really good this year. What say you, Archie?
Yeah, no, exactly that. As you kind of mentioned, once again, if you look at the depth chart, Thornhill will be the top guy in that free safety slot. But I think in terms of the base defense, he's going to be the first man off the field, and you'll have Ramsey, Porter, Slay, and Elliott on the field. And then as soon as it turns to nickel, he'll become the fifth guy. So I think as you said, he's not going to have to do the complete Minka role of being the main guy on the back end, but
Yep.
he is that typical center fielder that keeps everything in front of him. And I think that kind of suits him well from what he did so well at the Chiefs when he won, I believe, 2 Super Bowls with them potentially. We all know he's kind of taken
Yeah.
a dip in his last 2 years, but a lot of that could be attested to being at the Browns and what was such a dysfunctional culture while he was there. So I think we could see a bit of a renewal for Thornhill, who, by all accounts, and listening to him talk and seeing him play, he's a superb competitor, and I think he's got a lot to prove this year. So he's another guy, as you said, he's got a lot to prove, and he's got, I think, a role that suits him well enough at this stage of his career to be able to kind of flourish in there. And then in terms of Joey Porter, yeah, I think when you couple the move for Jalen Ramsey, bringing in Darius Slay, and then kind of that sophomore slump that he experienced last year, his stocks could be slightly low from the fan base on Joey, but from everything that we hear, Mike Tomlin and everyone else groups them in as a three. It's the three pass coverage guys. It's Ramsey, Porter, and Slay. So they're working as a trio there, and I think you'll see kind of, we've kind of heard that Joey still wants to be that number one guy. If you heard, I believe, was it Jalen Ramsey on the Pivot podcast? He was talking about how when Jamar Chase comes to town, it's Jalen's, but Joey wants those matchups. So I think that kind of attests to the mindset that Joey still carries even after that sophomore slump. That makes you think he can definitely still be a cornerback one in the future, being the young guy in the room still and being able to learn from the vets. So he's got a huge opportunity to learn a lot, and I still think he's the number 2 cornerback on this roster behind Jalen. But as we know, Jalen's going to be moving all around the place. So, yeah, huge opportunities.
Yeah, he is. I don't know how I feel about Ramsey matching up with like Jamar Chase and whatnot in those types of games. I wanted him to kind of be more along the lines of in base he plays safety, in nickel he plays nickel, and just let Joey Porter Jr. and Darius Slay handle their sides of the field. I felt like that was going to be the better schematic advantage because Ramsey's so physical in the slot. If you move him outside, though, who are you putting in the slot? Are you taking Joey Porter Jr. off the field and putting Eccles in at the slot corner spot? Or are you taking Darius Slay off the field and putting in somebody at the slot? Or are you moving Slay to the slot? Joey's not going to the slot, probably. I mean, he's never done that really before outside of very specific game plans. So I don't know. We'll see. And then you get to the point with like a Bengals team, though, I guess, give Jalen Ramsey travel duties with Jamar Chase, and you still got to worry about T. Higgins on the other side. So Joey Porter can still get his when it comes to big name receivers. But schematically, I don't know how I feel about moving Jalen around with the number 1 wide receiver when you're facing like a heavyweight number 1 in those types of matchups. They won't do that in week 1 probably because Garrett Wilson's not one of these all-pro receivers like a Jamar Chase is. He's still really good, but I doubt that he'll be followed by Jalen Ramsey in week 1. So we'll see how it plays out, but I just have concerns about that. And that's not the topic we're on. We're talking about some of these under the radar guys, but going back to Joey Porter, some people are mentioning that Porter has a fire underneath him this year. Afton Forehead says that she'd love for Porter to have a cleaner season. I think that's one thing that stood out to me in training camp is it was a pretty clean training camp from JPJ. And there were a lot of reports last year from the beat writers out of training camp. Very handsy. He probably would have gotten called for that one. I can't tell you how many times I saw a tweet. He probably would have gotten called for that one in a game last year. I didn't see as many of those this year. So we'll see how it plays out. But I like the room. And I think right now Joey Porter Jr. is flying under the radar there because of some of the big name additions. And then the other guy, Archie, is Brandon Eccles. We mentioned him a couple times now, but he's going to have such a huge role. It's kind of like the 4th guy. He's going to be their dime cover corner, when they have 4 corners on the field. He's also going to rotate in the nickel. So, and he's the first guy off the bench too if somebody gets hurt. So they're going to need him to be on his P's and Q's there. Anybody else that stands out to you? We've got some people mentioning Jonnu Smith and whether he's healthy or not. I know he's healthy, or I'm pretty sure he's healthy. I should say that because they didn't put him on IR and he was talking to the media this week. And usually, if somebody's injured, they're not going to talk to the media. So I think he'll be fine. He'll play week 1. He'll be good to go. So I'm not too worried about that. Anybody else before we go to break here, Archie, that you want to bring up as far as an underrated or an under the radar guy that we're not talking about?
Yeah, so another guy that kind of fits in the same category to me is kind of what Joey Porter is. Keanu Benton. We kind of spoke about him before
Yeah,
the show here, and
absolutely.
he's one of those guys that he had a phenomenal rookie season. All the underlying metrics on his play were outstanding, and it was just the production that we were waiting to see. So kind of everyone expected that production boom last year. It wasn't to be, but I still think he flashed a lot. He still had a lot of those metrics that were positive. Kind of in his corner. So I think in terms of obviously the unfortunate injury to Derek Harmon, which he's going to maybe miss a few weeks to start the season, it's a huge
Hmm.
opportunity for Keanu to kind of plant his flag as the guy to be beside Cam Hayward in the base defense when you've got
Yeah.
4 on the front. So, in the nickel when you've got 2 down linemen. So I think, yeah, he's got a huge opportunity to start off the season, and this is kind of the put up or shut up year in a sense for Keanu because he's kind of been pegged to be the next great Steelers defensive lineman a little bit and kind of easing Cam Hayward out after that rookie season and kind of taking a lot of the load off what Cam had to do, and that wasn't to be in year 2. So with Derek Harmon now coming to the Steelers, it's more competition for him as we've kind of talked about in the chat. There's a fire under him now as well because he's got that guy breathing down his neck. So I think
Hmm.
this year could be a huge year for Keanu.
I like it. Um, the pressure's off. He can just go out there and play football. There was a lot of pressure on him last year because everybody thought so highly of his rookie season. Um, so yeah, I think that he's definitely one of those guys that we could see a bounce back, kind of like inside the sophomore slump. He gets that junior juice up, right? He's just going to be flying all over the field. I think we saw it in preseason when he was out there with Derek Harmon. I love Derek Harmon, but Keanu Benton looked like the better player when he was out there on the field next to Derek Harmon in some of those in the first couple preseason games, and I think Derek Harmon was getting his feet under him a little bit. And obviously, I think Derek Harmon's going to be really good. He was a first round pick, and Benton was a second round pick. So the pedigree obviously would state that Harmon probably ends up being the better player. But for now, I do think Keanu Benton is the better player, and I think that when Harmon comes back, he's going to have to work through um, New Benton to get onto the field in some of those 2 down lineman looks. When they come out in nickel D and they want to play 2 down linemen and then have the 2 stand up rushers off the edge, then I think right now that's going to be New Benton and Cam Hayward. With Cam Hayward probably the one rotating out on some of those things because you want to give him some breaks and stuff. You want him in there for rundowns and base D and those types of situations. So when we get down to it, I think it's going to be a true 3-man rotation there, and it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. Hopefully Harmon gets healthy quickly and can be a part of that. Um, I'm looking here. Let's see. Okay, we've got Deadhead mentioning YA Black and Peyton Wilson. Those are 2 guys on this podcast that we've had a lot of well, shouldn't say this podcast, but a podcast with me in it. A podcast that I host had a lot of discussions about Peyton Wilson. I think he is going to have a big year as well. And then YA Black's been getting a lot of pop recently because of his really, really fascinating preseason performances. So we'll see both of those guys. We'll see both of those guys make an impact. And so I think that the Steelers do have a lot of guys on the fringe, not fringe of the roster, but on the fringes of the game where you're going to not rely on them for like all the big splash plays that you would your TJ Watts and whatnot, but you're going to be relying on these guys to make plays for you. So it's going to be fun to watch, and we've got a lot to discuss still on this show and more. So keep your questions coming. If you have any generic questions about the Steelers, we'll get to those on the second half of the show here, and Archie and I will keep it rolling here on the Steelers Q&A. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this. And we are back here on the Steelers Q&A. If you've been listening live, we didn't go anywhere. You just got to stare at our faces for a couple awkward seconds while we didn't say anything, but that's okay. You couldn't ask for two better looking guys to be looking at while that's going on. So we're going to get into some more questions here. But Archie, I do want to ask you, like, if you have one guy that you're like, I cannot wait to see this guy in week one. Cannot wait to see him suiting up and go at it in actual NFL game action. Who is that player for you?
Man, I think it's so hard for me to bypass Jalen Ramsey just because I love the way he plays the game. I love the aggression, the physicality, and the mentality he kind of carries. He's got this certain, I suppose, aura, for a lack of a better phrase, that I don't think many others have in the NFL.
Did you kind of love it like? Sorry, did you kind of love it like me when he threw that running back down in the backfield, even though it was a penalty against the Panthers? It's just like, yeah, just bring some of that nasty back. We need that back in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was well worth the penalty. It was a game that didn't mean anything really.
Yes.
It just kind of
Set
planted
the
the flag to show who he is and what he's here to do. A lot of people have kind of written him off recently that he's not the guy he used to be. And we'll find that out, but I'm pretty sure that with the way the Steelers are going to deploy him, he's going to be box office all season to watch. So he's one of the guys. I know it's pretty stock standard, but then the other guy I did want to quickly throw out just because of how important of a year it is Broderick Jones. I think his kind of progression as an NFL player might be the most important to the team as a whole. He was a first-round pick they traded up for, been bookmarked, essentially penciled in to be the left tackle of the future. And he had a solid rookie season, had a rough start to his sophomore year, and kind of got a lot better towards the end of the year, but still showed a lot of issues, I suppose, on the technical side. So I think it'll be interesting to see him with the move back to the left, and I think he might be the most important player in terms of taking a jump this year for the Steelers.
Yeah, those are two great ones there. I think that, like, when you're just talking about direct impact in high profile moments on games, that, like, Broderick Jones specifically, he's going to be the guy that my eyes go to on 3rd and 10 in the fourth quarter when you need to get that first down conversion, or at the end of the half when you're trying to get down and separate yourself a little bit before the half, or cut the lead a little bit closer. Does he keep Rodgers clean, right? That's going to be something that I'm watching very, very closely. And I'm not going to get cute with this at all. Like, the two guys I want to see are both on the offensive side of the ball, and it's Aaron Rodgers and it's Caleb Johnson. Those are the two guys I've talked the most about this offseason, and I cannot wait to see those guys on the field together in a real game. Believe me, Caleb Johnson's going to get some work in this game as a true, like, not the lead back. I'm not going to say he's going to be the lead back, but the other two guys here in this game, you're not going to just line up under center and turn and hand the ball off in wide zone to these guys on multiple plays. Like, they're going to be talking specifically about Jaylen Warren and Kenneth Gainwell. They're going to be utilized in the passing game. They're going to be utilized split out wide. Jaylen Warren is going to be integral on passing downs for pass protection. But the role of the bruising back still needs to be filled, and Caleb Johnson's going to fill that role. Whether it starts out fast for him or starts out slow and he slowly garners more and more of a role on this team, he's going to have a role, and I cannot wait to see it. I think he's going to be electric. I think he has a 20-plus yard run this week. Like, I think he establishes himself that he's going to come out there and be an explosive type back there. And then Aaron Rodgers, man, we didn't see anything in the preseason out of Aaron Rodgers, and something that some of the players have been saying coming out of camp is like when they talk about him and they say, ooh, he's still got it for a 41-year-old quarterback. I tend to believe it when you're talking about it from a player perspective, because these players don't say things usually that are going to get them sound bites, right? Most of the time they're trying not to do that, and that's a sound bite. A sound bite is saying Aaron Rodgers is back. And so they must believe it, and I think I believe it too, and I don't think he's going to bring the baggage that he did with the Jets, so I don't think the first time things go rough that he's going to, you know, turncoat on the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't think that's going to happen. So I'm excited to see him, man. And I'm not predicting a big high scoring game this week. Don't think that's going to happen. I'd be surprised, honestly, if either team reached 20 points. But I do think that the Steelers have a chance to kind of establish a little bit who they are very quickly this season with Aaron Rodgers and Caleb Johnson taking on a big role there.
Yeah, so I think in terms of KJ, he was one of those guys that me and you both talked about through the draft process, and
Yeah.
then once the Steelers drafted him as kind of our guy through the whole thing. He just suits the system so well in the outside zone. He's just a savant at it. So I think I'm not sure whether he'll get a whole lot of work to start off the game, but I think he's one of those guys that might start seeing a bit more in the second quarter, third quarter, and
Mm-hmm.
then to close out the game. Just
Yep.
because one, Jalen Warren has fumble issues, and two, he's a
Yep.
volume carrier. So you're going to want to get him the ball when the other teams are fatigued. He's had 5, 6, 7 carries on his NFL debut, and he's just rolling from there. So I think he'll be an exciting one to watch. And I think that kind of role he's got will just expand throughout the season because he is the closest thing, I suppose, from a body archetype to what Najee Harris was, and to be able to take the brunt of those hits that Najee did for so long.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Caleb, he's got a bit more juice than Najee, so I don't compare them as a player, but just from that
Yeah.
that size and stature standpoint, he can take a bit more of the hits than Jalen can. And
Right.
then Aaron, he's been the talking point all off season. He's
Yeah.
kind of, if you watched him towards the end of last year for the Jets, you know he can still spin the rock. Like, he's making throws that only Mahomes, Allen, Jackson, and Burrow are making, honestly. So, and some of the stages. So I think if we can see just some exciting flashes of Aaron Rodgers and get 80% of what he was towards the end of his Green Bay tenure, I
Mm-hmm.
think it'll be an exciting year.
I went back and I watched, granted, because I didn't have a lot of time this time, I went back and I watched like the Aaron Rodgers highlight throws from last year. And especially once you get to the second half of the season, there's a lot of different kinds of highlight throws. It's not just all of the slot fades and stuff like that. But I was sitting there thinking in the process of it, like, this guy's moving around really well. I think he ran for a 22-yard first down on a 3rd and 18, something like that. I mean, if he has to do it, he can still do it. You're not going to ask him to do it, and you don't want him sitting back there and trying to create all the time and everything. You want him to play in rhythm, but I do think that there's some of that left in the tank. And then the thing that encouraged me the most is, like, look at where the Steelers are strongest when it comes to their pass catchers. And I'm looking at DK Metcalf on the slants, and I'm looking at DK Metcalf on those fades, right? Those balls from Rodgers are just impeccable. Like, the placement on the slant routes to give your guy a chance to get some yak, not take a huge hit. Those are great. The fades to the corner, down the sideline, the back shoulder stuff, those are just uncanny where he puts the football on those types of throws. So very good fits for DK. And then the seam balls, the absolute frozen rope lasers over the middle of the field. Tell me you can't see 8 to 88 being just a huge connection all year long on those seam routes, getting in behind the defense and layering footballs in between the linebackers and the safeties. I think that he's going to fit what the Steelers' skill set acquisition-wise has been on the offensive side of the ball. I know that they are lacking maybe some depth at the skill positions, but when it comes to the guys that do specific things well, Aaron Rodgers fits those guys to a T, in my opinion. We'll see if Arthur Smith can make it work, because that's where I have questions, is like, can Arthur Smith see this too and make it happen?
Yeah, I think one thing that's gone slightly under the radar, though, in terms of Arthur Smith, is we know that he likes to hit over the middle of the field with his play action. And last year with the Steelers, he had Justin Fields, who was pretty, suspect hitting throws over the middle of the field. He liked to throw outside the numbers. Like, he had the arm talent. He could see it. He just didn't want to pull the trigger on the middle of the field throws. And then Russell Wilson, who just has flat out refused to for his whole career, essentially.
Yeah.
So it'll be exciting to see him have a guy that enjoys throwing over the middle of the field, isn't worried about taking the risk, throwing into coverages. So I think it could open up a bit of Arthur Smith's playbook that we didn't get to see last year. And I think
Mhm.
we even saw a bit of it in preseason and the early goings of preseason when Mason Rudolph had it rolling, or Skylar Thompson, the play action and hitting Roman Wilson over the middle of the field. It was all just. I think we might see a bit more of what Arthur Smith actually is as a coordinator this year. As to last year, he kind of had to
Yeah.
build a new scheme around the lack of skill set that his players
Hmm.
had that matched what he did in Tennessee, and that was so successful.
Yeah. You know, I always said that Russell Wilson, the middle of the field for Russell Wilson was just the walkway to get between your next snap, right? He did
Yeah,
not play in the middle of the field. It was just the walkway to get to and from your next play. So he is out, obviously, and Aaron Rodgers has no problem ripping some seam balls over the middle of the field. So I'm excited about that for sure.
no
All
doubt.
right. Wanted to pull up some of the chats here. We did. Mark Cunningham did say about the Caleb Johnson conversation. He hopes that we're right, that he's going to get some run, that he's going to be explosive, and going back to like the Caleb Johnson to Najee Harrison or Najee Harris comparisons. Like you were exactly right. When you compare the two players, they play nothing alike, but the role that Najee Harris filled in Pittsburgh is probably going to be the role that Caleb Johnson is going to be asked to fill as well. So, from a role playing perspective, they are very similar to what the Steelers want. But from a stylistic, how do they win in that role? Very different players.
Yeah,
Hard to compare the two, anything beyond like what you're going to ask them to do at the NFL level. So, that is one of the things I wanted to bring up there. Michael says, I hope Aaron Rodgers gets his Super Bowl this year. Well, yeah, me too, man. I really do. And then he mentioned that he thought Aaron Rodgers might come back to the Steelers year after. Oh, sorry, that was not what I tried to pull up, but we'll get to it here in a second. Um, Michael said, also, Aaron Rodgers comes back next year to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Archie, let's just talk about that real quick while we're still in speculation season, right? Do you think there's any possibility that he could be the Steelers quarterback in 2026?
I think what's interesting about Aaron Rodgers is that I don't think a lot of people outside of maybe his his close knit group and then the head coach potentially knows what he's thinking as a person going forward. So I think you can never say no, because if he has a great season and he loves it, then there's all the chance that he might want to come back, as long as kind of all those issues he had with his close knit group are all kind of sorted out. Like that was the reason why he took so long to sign, that we found out, and absolutely fair enough. And it's just one of those things that whether he can, if he plays well enough, that the Steelers would have him back for another year potentially to let their rookie quarterback learn under, because even if he comes back, I'm pretty sure they'll be taking someone round one.
Yeah.
And he seems like he's kind of at the stage in his life where he's just letting things come to him, I suppose, like
Mm-hmm.
opportunities, and he's not so set on things, I suppose. So if he loves it in the Steelers, and it kind of reminiscent of his Green Bay days that he's talked so highly of, being at one of these cornerstone franchises, and he really enjoys it, I don't see why not. But I would doubt it, just
Mm-hmm.
because it's kind of been heralded to be his last hurrah, in a way, and the
Yeah.
1 year deal kind of says it all as well.
Yeah, it would take some finagling. I think, well, and to Michael's conversation point there, I think if he wins a Super Bowl, the hat is hung up. I mean,
Oh yeah,
it's over if he wins the Super Bowl. If he made an AFC championship and lost in the AFC championship, and you're like, yeah, get that wide receiver two in the building, and you probably win that game. Something along those lines, right?
hmm
Maybe. But things change so much in an NFL offseason, and it really feels like he's entering a new stage of his life.
yeah,
Newly married, all the things that go along with that. And then, you know, just kind of trying to wash away the poor aftertaste of the Jets tenure. That's kind of what this is all about, right? And try to do one last thing good in the league, and go out on the right foot. I don't feel like he's coming back. But if he did, it would be because he tasted the the air at the mountaintop again and didn't quite get to land the trophy and maybe go one more chance. But even still, I think that it would be hard to convince him to come back. So,
Yeah.
and then the last thing on Aaron Rodgers here from Mr. Woodside. Thank you for your comment here. We appreciate you hopping in the channel. AR8 isn't in love with the middle of the field either. He throws a lot of passes under 5 yards and very much like Ben his last couple years. I agree with that. The only thing I would say about Aaron Rodgers, like it, to where it's a stark contrast from either quarterback that started for the Steelers last year, is like if Aaron Rodgers sees it over the middle of the field and he can see it over the middle of the field, he will throw it there. He's very much willing to throw there. He doesn't love it there. It's not where he's like most comfortable. But if the opportunity arises in the middle of the field, he doesn't turn it down to the degree that Russell Wilson and Justin Fields did. So very much willing to throw over the middle of the field, not necessarily wanting to, but very much willing to.
Yeah, I think it's just the biggest difference is you've gone from a QB room that one wasn't willing and then the other one wasn't able to throw over the middle of the field to someone that if the opportunity is there, he's not going to bypass it because he's able to make the throw. So that's the difference. He can do. He's got the mentality and the confidence and the nuance to be able to throw over the middle of the field, and he's able to do so. So even if he doesn't do it as frequently as some of the best players over the middle of the field in the NFL, he's going to go from one extreme to from what we had with Russell Wilson and Justin Fields to at least an upgrade. And Aaron Rodgers to throwing over the middle of the field, and quite a big one at that.
Yep, absolutely. All right, let's see here. Jamie Carlo, we'll pull this up as kind of a comment to this. Fair assessment, but I believe the coaching staff made those two quarterbacks last year wary, is probably what he's trying to say, wary of throwing the ball in the middle of the field. I actually kind of disagree with that. I don't think Arthur Smith is telling anybody to not throw over the middle of the field. Maybe Mike Tomlin is. Maybe Tomlin's saying, you know what, this game here, game plan, we're not going to go crazy in the middle of the field because our defense can get us out of here if we just take what's there for us on the non-dangerous type throws. And so that would play into it. But I don't think Arthur Smith is in the meeting room with Russell Wilson last year saying, you know what, just don't even try over the middle of the field. Just don't even do that. We don't want to risk it there. That's not who Arthur Smith is. So I would say that it was a quarterback problem last year more than it was a staff issue. I always go back to this. When Ben Roethlisberger was at his peak and the trust was there, Mike Tomlin had no issue with him ripping the ball over the middle of the field. To the point that Roethlisberger had 5 picks in a game against Jacksonville. He had 4 picks in a playoff game against the Cleveland Browns. I mean, what are we talking about here? Tomlin does get conservative, to Afton's point, but I don't think that had anything to do with not targeting the middle of the field. It may have had something to do with like how often the Steelers threw the ball and the play selections in certain situations. But I don't know. I'm more willing to defend the coaching staff on that degree based on history and based on the fact that Rush just can't see those things. And Fields can see it, but he's just like, I ain't doing that, man. I ain't throwing that ball into double coverage over the middle of the field.
Yeah, I think essentially, even if it was the coaching staff kind of pushing them away from the middle of the field, it was because of the lack of the skill set to be able to do so. And it's
right, because of the
all over
weaknesses there.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty obvious that those are clear weaknesses of both those two quarterbacks' play. And then I just think quickly to, where was it? The conservative nature, I think, of Mike Tomlin. I suppose as you kind of alluded to, when he had Ben Roethlisberger at the helm, he wasn't conservative. He let it loose and he let Ben do his thing. So I think, yes, he's became conservative, but a lot of that can be attested to not having a quarterback that he's completely trusted under center since then. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so whether that was Ben post surgery or Kenny Pickett, Mason Rudolph, Mitch Trubisky, Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, none of them have done enough to earn um, Mike Tomlin's trust to be able to
Yeah.
kind of let the playbook open and win games, I suppose, in
Right.
that kind of way. Aaron Rodgers, we don't know if he has done that yet, and we won't know until maybe halfway through the season. But he's got a better chance to, I'd say, than majority of those quarterbacks that I've just named off there. So I think, yeah,
Yeah.
there is a conservative nature, and I think the quarterback argument, you can go so far into that it's Mike Tomlin's, a lot of Mike Tomlin's fault that they haven't been able to find the quarterback, but that's just another story.
Yeah, yeah, we could spend a whole show on that topic for sure as well. So, Mark Cunningham gives you a facts statement here. You're rolling with it. I like it. So, okay. So to close things out here, to wrap things up, we need to do so. Archie, I wanted to throw two things at you. Number one, college football week 1 is in the books, wrapped up for the most part. There's a couple West Coast games still going on, I guess. But um, give me one player that stood out to you from college football week 1. If you have like one for sure and then a couple quick hitters you want to give, that's fine too. And then I want you to give me your score prediction for the Steelers-Jets game next week, since this is the last time this show will air before the Steelers game.
Yeah, okay. First name that stuck out to me, it was actually last night for me, was Harold Perkins for LSU against Clemson. I mean,
Yeah.
he's been one of those guys that after his freshman season was essentially he was told that he was too small to play off the edge. He was a tweener. He had the ACL injury, and he's came back this year, and Brian Kelly's found him in the star position with his new defensive coordinator as well. And the way he was deployed, he was given reasonably simple coverage assignments, which is great for him because he's an
Mm-hmm.
edge linebacker hybrid, but he's got the athleticism to cover people, and then giving him the opportunity to rush off the edge as well and create pressure. He was a game wrecker essentially, and that's what we saw out of his freshman year. Even though he was severely undersized, he's a hell of a talent, and it was awesome to see him back
Yeah.
out on the field. And then a few quick hitters. Talk about Lenora Sellers. He put all his superhuman traits on show in the second half today.
Yep.
The rushing ability, breaking out of sacks, the deep ball to Nick Harbour. I'm not sure if you saw that, but that was beautiful.
Nick
And then,
Harbor's a name to watch too.
yep, yeah.
That guy's so good.
He's been doubted for the past 2 years because of the lack of
Yeah.
production, but he's another name to watch. He was kind of unlucky not to have 2 touchdowns in that game. One of the catches were ruled.
Mm,
He had a touchdown, then was overruled.
that's right. Yep.
The last name I wanted to mention, which he's not draft relevant at all, but I was just watching the Miami game before, and Malachi Tony, I believe his name, and the freshman from Miami, wide receiver. I'd say
Mm,
just keep an eye out on
yeah.
him. He looked like a
Ooh.
stud.
He's the one who snagged that ball out of the air for a touchdown with one hand.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, that was insane. I was just seeing the highlight on my phone as we were recording. So that's great. Okay, give me your Steelers pick for this weekend.
I'm gonna go with. Yeah. Give me 23-10. Steelers.
23-10 Steelers. All right.
Yeah.
I like it. I like it.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers exacts his revenge. The defense looks good. That feels right in line with it. I'm gonna go ahead and say 20 to. I'll do 20-13. So I'll just take off a field goal for the Steelers. I think it's low scoring. I think it's tight, probably until the end, like tighter than it should be until the end, just because the defenses are winning and you kind of feel like the Steelers are dominating, but they're not on the scoreboard. And then you just have to make a few plays at the end of the game to win it, and look for that 20-yard run from Caleb Johnson that I mentioned earlier to ice, or be one of the runs that ices the game at the end. So, all right, good stuff, Archie. I appreciate you coming on with me, man. I know you're doing some writing as well for Steel Curtain Network. So, listeners, go in and check that out. Make sure that you get as much stuff from Archie as you can there. Like and subscribe to the YouTube channel here. Steel Curtain Network, Fans for Sports. I'm doing a lot of writing for Pro Football Insiders right now. So go follow us on X there. That's pro_FB_insiders. And you can check it out there. You can follow me on X at thebets93. And you can follow Archie on X at @Wills_Steelers. We'd love to chat with you over there as well. That's going to do it for us here on the Steelers Q&A. We hope you all have a great weekend. Steelers football is next week. We'll talk to you then.